Hello, this is the Yes California recall debate. It will be starting live at 1 p.m. You can see the people who have agreed to participate in today's debate. We will be starting live at 1 p.m. The debate won't start until 1 p.m. We're just starting the stream early. trying to get that going, I could be that guy. So
Okay.
that's.
Oh, yeah. I'll have Tiny's TV. I'll write up a blurb and email it to you. And then you can tweak it however you feel is necessary. If your Twitter DMs don't have the same like character restriction as the actual tweets, right?
I don't have it. Is your mute on?
It is now. I just turned it off.
Good morning. Who are you?
My name is Marcus Ruiz Evans. I'm the host.
What happened?
Nothing.
Oh, there. For a second, I thought you lost your audio. Good morning.
Good morning. Let me just get this out of the way. I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thank you very much.
When you played Sandman in the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, I know, yeah.
It seems to be an enduring cartoon.
It was. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of a silly thing, but it was cool.
It was a rigorous job. Yeah. Yeah, fighting like 18 hours a day for 2 weeks is rigorous.
They really had you guys do that, like pound on each other during the.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, of course, it's you're pulling your punches largely. I have a second volume of my book coming out, which I spent a lot of time on that movie and others in different sections. So yeah, there's a lot involved. It's it's stunt choreography and. But you're talking about fighting in a very hard place, the San Pedro power plant. So there's not a lot of soft surfaces there. Yeah, I could talk about that job forever. But and then I did another one with him 29 years later, which was Blackwater.
I'm gonna watch that. I saw that on Netflix. I haven't seen it. Okay, it's gonna get.
What is your background? What do you?
Well, so Yes California is a pro-California policy group. We've been around since 2014. Mm-hmm. We decided in March of this year that we were going to start hosting debates for any candidate for the recall election, whether you were a Democrat, Green, Republican, Tea Party, Patriots, Solidarity Party, or Bernie Sanders fan, whatever you wanted. We predicted in March, months ago, that there was going to be a media blackout of the candidates, that the Democratic Party was trying to tell people not to run. We predicted there was going to be a lack of coverage, and we were able to get a hold of about 25% of the candidates who declared. We ran debates with them. Then when the official list came out, we were able to get a hold of about 30% of all the officially registered candidates who are going to appear. And we've had most of them in a debate. We've had more debates with more candidates than anybody. and we've been able to build up a reputation of being fair and trying to do, unfortunately, what the media should be doing. Universities, Lions clubs, local schools, they should be at least hosting candidates in their area. That's typical in an election.
Yeah.
And of the 35 candidates we've spoken with who represent every part of California, they're saying nothing. There's no university. There's no League of Women Voters. There's no Lions Club debate. I mean, even small times things. We've even had Jewish candidates who said they reached out to their local synagogue and they go, I don't talk to us. So it's highly bizarre. Usually local communities will, even if they say, hey, we like the governor, we hope he wins, but we're going to have a debate because it's our community. This is what we're supposed to be doing. So when there's a near total blackout of that, from the 31 people, 35 we've spoken to, we're kind of the only game in town, and we're very proud to be able to provide a service to the public. Our debate last time with Tom Elias, who's the reporter that started the 2003 recall, went very good, and we're building up our reputation from that. Hello, candidate Hilberg.
Hello.
Hi, candidate
Patrick is here.
I want to applaud you very much for what you're doing, and we've had great success reaching out, but it's all been through our network and with events and our social media campaigns and the digital campaigns and things. And yes, we've run into that, but I think some of that inertia is going away as we sort of race towards the conclusion. I'm having a grand time getting to know Californians to a greater depth than I thought I did, pretty in depth before. But anyway, I want to applaud you very much for doing what you're doing, because, you know, as you can see, just with the we can save some of this for the discussion on camera, but
you can take up the time now. We're not starting for 16 minutes. This is open conversation. When we start, it's going to be questions, and you'll have like a minute and a half. So if you have something you want to get out, we're live, but we haven't started.
Well, I'm validating what you're saying. I mean, we actually have received threatening letters from the Democratic Party saying if you ever run, any Democratic candidate who runs will never hold office in this state again. And my attorney, who received some of this stuff, we just laughed because it's pretty rich. For me, and I'll save some of this when we're talking, but it's just been a glorious experience to be able to connect with people of all walks of life, and to put a program together that we know holds some light at the end of the tunnel for California from both parties and from across the aisle. I think people are sick of it. They're sick of the gang warfare going on. And they want to get things done. Hello.
I agree. Can you, hello, Professor. Patrick Kilpatrick, is there any way you would be willing to show that letter that you got from the Democratic Party?
Oh, yeah. You know, we've been moving so fast that so fast and so swiftly forward and everything. I haven't even gotten to that. There's absolutely, I'd be happy to show it to you on the debate.
If you could hold it up, or
well, it's an email transmission.
Send me the email.
What?
So you have my email. If you email that to me, I can do a share screen when you're speaking and show the letter you're speaking about.
Yeah, this came about when I was bandying about for a campaign manager. So I love my attorney, and he's a very accomplished man and works with me vitally. So I said, do you know anybody that can be a campaign manager? So he began to seek out among Democratic people that he knew, both parties really, and got an absolute shutdown and got this email. Let me forward it to you.
Please, sir. You're saying that as a movie actor, you started looking for a campaign manager, and
Yeah.
shortly after that search became public, you received messaging directly from the California Democratic Party that was
I got messaging from a high Democratic operative, if you would.
okay.
And let me pull it up while you're talking to these other gentlemen, if you want to, or something, and then I'll send it over to you. Do I have your email? I do, don't I? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you type in, we talked on, or at least your campaign manager sent it to me. If you type in Marcus Ruiz, it should come up in your search.
You got it. Thank you very much. Well, I'd be the first one to say I've got a really good team, and a lot of these things I just hand off to people and say, send it over. But either I or Maria will send it over to you right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Hannock, thank you for joining us. David Hilberg, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We're expecting a few more people. Kevin Call said he would be here, Jackie McGowan, Holly Beatty, and we're also expecting Leo Zaki.
Here it is. Here it comes.
Hey.
You gentlemen look very relaxed.
I'm just tired. I spent the last
I'm telling you,
25 hours staying awake.
Kilpatrick, I'm missing my nap. If I get much more relaxed, I'm going to sink out of sight.
Well, I understand the value of a siesta.
Only with a siesta can you go to the fiesta.
That's a good phrase. I'll remember that one. Thank you very much.
I won't hardly remember anything.
The problem is in film production, you have a very compressed time and you got to get it done. It is not unlike that process at all. So where do you all come from?
Well, I'm in Fountain Valley.
I was down there at the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah.
I'm from Inglewood, and the local realtors have come together to name North Inglewood La Tierra Village.
Translate?
A village that's on La Tierra Avenue.
Oh, okay. I thought Tierra, maybe it was the Earth Village.
No,
Tierra
that had to be a Terra.
Yeah.
Yeah, land.
And are you educators? What do you do?
Well, I'm an actor, and I'm also an aircraft mechanic, but I actually do more aircraft mechanic work because 92% of the actors that are currently union members are not employed anyway.
Yeah, well, I've been mostly a screenwriter, movie producer all through COVID.
Yeah.
Although I booked a film in Belgium the other day. I have read your bios, by the way, sometime during the campaign. So it's not like I'm just kind of catching up.
Yeah.
Fountain Valley is an interesting place, isn't it?
Yeah, it used to be called Gospel Swamp. Back in the 60s.
What was it called?
Gospel Swamp.
That was more interesting then.
I loved it. You know, Mayor Vu down there. I went down to appear both at his event and to the Chamber of Commerce. And both times they said I would speak. And they were kind and they introduced me and everything. And I prepared to get up and lionize them. But then they wouldn't let me speak.
Oh.
I don't know quite. I think because it was somewhat of people are sometimes, they think that you might steal their thunder. And that's really not why I was there. I was there to elevate them as well. And I think some of the efforts going on down there are heroic. I proposed to Mayor Vu that somehow he was talking about bringing more industry in there. And I said, well, let's do a film about Fountain Valley. You know, a global feature about Fountain Valley. And of course, as an actor, David, you'll be center cast. You know, by the way, the Chamber of Commerce, they brought their own wardrobe and everything. It was like central casting. You know what I'm talking about, those events, I think.
Yeah, the politicians are just another form of actor.
Well, yeah, I think to some extent that's true, yeah. And they had a show at the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I grew up here probably, well, I was in Huntington Beach first, and then I went to Fountain Valley with, you know, the whole family went to Fountain Valley. And that was when Miles Square was all, you know, had the one golfing area, the Miles Square Park, and then they had the fields where all the strawberries were. And my brother would spend more time watching the helicopters doing the spray runs on the strawberries and attending school.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful gig, though.
Oh, yeah.
Anything to do with helicopters. I mean, we've had, God, I've had, if you read that book I've written, I've had some fantastic, I'm lucky to have gotten through some of that. Some of my buddies, you know, were in that helicopter crash in the Philippines with Chuck Norris on the Chuck Norris film.
Yeah.
And you get out into these farms, and sometimes on these low budget films, you'll using the local farmer's helicopter to get footage. And, wow, it's exhilarating, but you know, you never wonder when those things are going to drop out of the sky.
When I was working for a FBO, we used to get contracted out for a lot of low budget movies, and you'd have to watch the special effects people in them like a hawk. You know, oh, let's go put a light on this helicopter, and they come out with the real gun with the PK screws, and it's like, oh, you don't want to mess with that. And
say that again.
They were the lighting department would actually, they wanted a light in this helicopter, and it's like, no, I tell them, if you have something to do with the aircraft, you come to me. You don't go to the aircraft.
Yeah.
And so the guys were there with their PK screws and their guns and their little light attachments, and they were going to do it like they do at a house, where they do it right into the drywall. But I've done probably 15 or 16 films dealing with aircraft and acting as a coordinator or a maintenance person with the aircraft to keep an eye on, you know, crew the aircraft so they don't mess it up.
That is such a strange intersectionality. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
The aircraft stuff and the acting. That is really, that's probably one of the most unique intersectionalities I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird because you have people that go into the industry, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so you get a bunch of people that are doing OJT and not telling them, I don't know what I'm doing, but I got to look good. And so, you know, I used to, well, when I was with the sheriff's department, that's where they brought the Twilight Zone crash as storage. And I ended up meeting, as I was working at Heiser, before I worked at the sheriff's department, I was working at Heiser, and Dorsey Wingo became, right after the accident, became our chief pilot. And we had a lot of weird things happen when he was flying, because the accident kind of messed him up really, really bad, because he's a real nice guy.
Who, David, John Landis?
No, not Landis was a jerk.
Yeah.
The Dorsey Wingo was the pilot that crashed on top of Vic Morrow.
Yeah.
And
before we, if I may, just because I want to make sure we cover this. So we're going to start in about 4 minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just got the email from Patrick. I got to show you this just so it's there on record. This is pretty hot. So let's go to.
Well, it's like the Democratic Club of Santa Monica. They talk to them about me speaking. Wouldn't even hear it.
This is from Saul Davis, whose email is octoprod1 to Robert Now, who works with Patrick Kilpatrick. Hi, Robert. In short, any Democrat who runs against Gavin Newsom, which is what a Democratic candidacy means, will end that person's legitimacy or viability to ever run for office in California thereafter. Such a candidacy will be so interpreted by all fundraisers, hosts, and contributors that I know or am aware of. I could go on, but I think you get my point. Want to be governor? Wait until Newsom's second term. That's an email here. You can see it documented July 8th at 11:38 a.m. We got this from Patrick Kilpatrick, came from Robert Now. Now, we took a second here to look at who this person is. And I'm literally just I did a Google search and typed in his name and email. So when you do a Google search for Saul email at Octopros or whatever, this is the guy that comes up. Los Angeles Development. He runs a marketing firm. He works at PBS, big time PBS, KLCS, Grammy nominated music producer. He did consulting for the Bee Gees, documentary music, etc. So he knows Bill Clinton, Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, and Senator Al Franken, all Democrats. He owns the Saul Davis Management Consultant Company that he's owned since 1979. So what does that mean? I'll leave it to you, but you are literally seeing an email from a high-ranking operative who runs a management company, is connected to top Democrats, and threatened anybody who dared to run as a Democrat. My question to the candidates, real quick before we get started, is that's called democracy?
Yeah.
Where you threaten candidates from running? Or is that more as the way democracy operates in places like China or Russia?
Well, he's
Not
a Nazi.
Marcus, if you were to do such a thing like that, you wouldn't be able to use Netflix anymore.
I just I said there was a media blackout.
Co-CEO of Netflix is the major donor to Governor Newsom. So if you were to run against him, I mean, your Netflix thing, that would be shut off.
I had the ignorant, stupid, imbecilic opinion that in a democracy, only the people choose, and that everybody runs, and only the public gets to determine, not anyone else. And any other system where people other than the lay public choose is not democracy, according to international law and presidents of all 210 governments over the last century. But that's just my ignorant opinion. I could be wrong.
No, it's not. You're not being ignorant. I will say that juxtapositioned against that email is also a lot of Democrats and a lot of Republicans who are saying, run, 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 please run. And so there's an energy from, as you say so rightly, from the oligarchy or whatever you want to call it, that don't want anything interfering with the machine. I will also say that running for me has been absolutely liberating from the standpoint of relationships in business and the film business. So it's the powers that be that want to hold on to the status quo. And so coming from the people, they're like, oh my God, please run, please save the state. And so, you know, there's good and there's bad about, I mean, I'm kind of used to speaking my mind for decades in Hollywood, and you alienate some people and you garner great forces from another direction. So we thought it was amusing. I mean, it hardly from making us not want to run. We said, we're going to have a lot of fun with this because this is not democracy, as you so insightfully say.
I'm Latino. My family left Latin America, and my abuelita, my grandma, always said, I go, why are there so many Mexicans in California? She goes, because America invaded all the countries and they're all back. They don't function correctly. And I got a foreign policy subscription from my mother at age 18. When I was 18, I asked for a subscription to Foreign Policy Magazine, top magazine for foreign policy. And I studied democracies. And so I've been studying this for 20 years. And I understood, why are Latinos coming here? Well, the governments don't function. They have these games. They call them democracies, but they aren't willing. And I got to tell all of you, as a Latino, as somebody who listened to my abuelita, as somebody who studied foreign policy for 20 years, as somebody who wrote a book that was committed by a California foreign policy expert, everything that I've seen in Latin America over the last 20 years as to why their governments don't work, we're now doing here in California. So that should startle you. Not a good sign. Bad sign. Not a suggestion of stable operating systems. Bad sign.
I want to add to that, the largest group of Congressional Medal of Honor winners is Latin. And so, well, we can talk about it on the show.
We'll talk about it. Thank you for the digression. We're going to get started here with the debate. You just heard a conversation that we were having about, is there a media blackout in California? I was telling Patrick Kilpatrick that we had talked to 35 candidates who represent multiple parties, Democrat, Green, Republican, Tea Party, around California, and they were telling us that nobody, not the local school, not the local talk club, not the local high school, not the local college, not the local newspaper, no one is asking them for any sort of debate, and that is highly unusual in an election. Local community newspapers typically will at least cover the local politician, and local universities will typically do that since they're paid for with our tax money, and none of that's happening. We call that a media blackout. We can't prove it. And when I was telling candidate Kilpatrick that, he goes, "Oh, well, you may find this amusing. I got this email." And I've never seen this email before, but it completely backs up what Yes California's been theorizing for months. Thank you, candidate Kilpatrick, for providing this.
My pleasure. And thank you all for running, because this is what democracy is about. I mean, putting a great deal of ideas on the table and making it work. I think people are, what they want is authentic people who are going to get things done. And, in the movie business, we create a vision and we make it into a reality. And I'm talking about myself now, but, as an actor or screenwriter, a movie producer, a journalist, an advertising writer, a director, assistant director on Broadway and off Broadway, we always deliver the goods. Well, I'd ask anybody in California, are the goods being delivered to the people of California? I don't think so. I think people, young people, old people, people from all ethnic groups need to rise up and elect people who are actually can get it done, and get it done with a wide variety of ideas across the board. And here's the good news. Here's the good news. I may get a threatening letter from a Democratic operative, but for sure, Newsom is reading our candidacy statements, because on July 16th, we call for a cash rebate to the film industry to revitalize the film industry here, because we've been giving it away for decades. On July 21st, he throws $330 million at the film business for incentive. We called for humane animal food production, preferential water rates for organic farmers and humane animal food production people. 5 days later, he announces a humane hog production initiative. So here's the good news. We're driving the vision and good ideas of the Newsom campaign. He's reading our candidate statements, and in time-honored political
I just want to say, Patrick, that in terms of the product, I sure wish there were more good movies. And frankly, I'm always inclined to defund Hollywood. However, Newsom has all the head of Netflix, and I'm not surprised.
Well, first of all, I agree with you.
Can't we?
Well, I don't think you should defund great artistry and great vision, because there's plenty of that out there with the rubbish. And
Yeah,
that's what
well, I wish the rubbish weren't so bountiful.
Okay.
there's
I'm gonna
plenty of
jump in
great
here.
stuff as well, too, though.
Thank you. We're going to get started with the debate. I'm going to go to
I
commercial.
thought we'd already started.
No, this is I let it go over a little bit. That's my apology. We're over 6 minutes. I'm going to go to commercial. We're going to come out of commercial, and I will start walking you through the instructions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
I
you.
apologize for something ahead of time. You're going to hear a fan. I'm really, really sorry. I've got a computer that would not have the fan, but it doesn't do this stream.
It
Got
thinks
it.
it's a cappuccino machine.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
It's the California Recall Debate, hosted by Yes California.
Again, special thanks to Bill Hensley, 30-year Broadway star doing Broadway musicals across America. Very appreciative we were able to get him to do an endorsement for this Democratic Forum. Today, we have a very special event for you. We have another recall candidate debate. And the people that you are seeing on your screen today are actor Patrick Kilpatrick, Professor James Hannick, Leo Zaki, and David Hilberg. Sam Gallucci and Steve Chavez-Lodge were interested in coming, but they weren't able to make it at the last minute. We're going to repeat the debate that happened at the Nixon Library. Now, the Nixon Library was the largest televised debate. We think that our debates are the most watched, but Nixon televised debates were very popular. A lot of people saw them. So what we're trying to do is establish the candidates to slip into the narrative stream, as we call it. When the media covers something, they like to talk more about that. So the news doesn't necessarily want to cover new things. They like to talk about what other people are talking about. So we took the questions from the Nixon Library debate. We're going to ask all the candidates the exact same questions. The intention is that the media will be able to see your answers and compare them to what they determined were the top candidates in their opinion, so that people can see what Faulkner said, Cox said, and others, and then they compare your responses to that, making an informed choice as an individual. I'm going to read off the questions. Each candidate will have about a minute to a minute and a half to respond to them. These are somewhat conservative focused questions, but here's the thing. You can agree with the questions and say, yes, I love that idea and we should totally do that. Or if you have more of a progressive stance, you can completely shut down the question, disagree, and say why it's not a good idea at all. All of you are running for governor. As governor, you are expected to be able to fight for your ideas. We would ask that you direct your responses to the other candidates where possible, and that you don't be shy to point out why your ideas are the best compared to all of the other candidates. Help the voters out. They're going to have to make a decision why you over anyone else. If they can't hear clear articulation from you as to why you're the best one, that makes it more difficult for them to make a decision. Address the other candidates, stand for yourself, be ready to answer as governor. We'll start with the questions in a minute, but first I want to do opening statements. Each candidate will have a minute to introduce themselves as they see fit, and we will go from there. So we're going to go in order of the title bar. Patrick Kilpatrick. In 1 minute, candidate Kilpatrick, how would you like the people of California, the world's 5th largest economy, 40 million humans, and sometimes called a nation state, to view you? And why do you think that you're the best option? In a minute, sir.
Well, I think they should view me not as a politician, not as a pundit, but a person of the people who embraces great ideas from both sides of the aisle. I've delivered the goods as an advertising writer, a journalist, an assistant director, director on Broadway, West End of London, Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. I've done 200 films and hit TV shows as a lead actor, working with teams from everybody from Spielberg to James Cameron to Antoine Fuqua. I run my own film company, and we develop and finance movies. We deliver the goods for our clients, for the global audience, I do that for my employees. I don't feel that the goods and vision are being exercised by California governors and governance people, and we'd like the chance to do that. If you go to kilpatrickforgovernor.com, you'll see a platform that embraces vision and execution, and I'm very happy to say that Newsom is picking up on those ideas instantly and effecting it. So 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the campaign, we are having a great effect on the state, despite a media blackout. And thank you for having me here.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to go to James Hannick. James Hannick, you are unmuted. In a minute, Professor Hannick, why are you the best candidate, and why should people follow your campaign?
Well, let me give you a location first. I'm from Inglewood. My wife and I just celebrated our 53rd wedding anniversary. We have 6 children, and our family, like our neighborhood, is racially diverse. I'm running for governor to advance the platform of the American Solidarity Party. Our party is real, it's growing, it's pro-life for the whole of life. We're neither conservative nor liberal, neither capitalist nor socialist. Our party is, however, progressive in the best sense. We want to make progress towards the common good. The common good is not just the good of a wealthy few, and it's not just the good of the shifting majority. It's the good of every human being. To advance the common good, we need to honor the principle of solidarity. The first measure of justice is how we treat the most vulnerable. We need to honor the principle of subsidiarity. We work from the grassroots up, from our local communities, and then, when necessary, to the county level and the state level. And we work from the principle of economic democracy, that is, the widest ownership possible of homes, of the means of production, and of the means of communication. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge Candidate McGowan just joined. Thank you, Candidate McGowan. You're in the stream. Everything's looking good. I added your name to the title bar. So this is the order that the questions will be appear, and we're going to repeat the questions from the Nixon Library debate. Let's go to Leo Zaki. Leo Zaki, why are you the top candidate? You're one of the youngest people running. You've had a fair amount of experience in business and in activism. And I think you traveled to some events around America. You made a lot of connections. But why are you the top candidate? And why should people be willing to take a chance with someone so young? Candidate Zaki, in 1 minute, please, sir.
Well, despite my age, I've had quite the career. I've been the vice president of Zaki Farms, which, as many of you probably know, was one of the
Audio is terrible.
main employers in California.
That
gave me a lot of opportunity to learn about the agriculture industry and the needs that California, the Central Valley does require when it comes to business, when it comes to water. And having been also a board member of the California Poultry Federation, I've had the unique opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., and to Sacramento many times and meet with our senators and congressmen, state reps, and senators. And I quickly discovered that they were some of the worst people, and it was very disheartening. And that is really what propelled me into running for California. I've seen firsthand the corruption. I understand the difficulties from the business side and why people are upset and frustrated. And also, having been born and raised in Los Angeles, I do know that there's a diverse range of problems that we have to tackle. I want to make California the beautiful place that we all know it deserves to be, and it has every opportunity to be. And I want to be that person that unites everyone and brings everyone together. That's why I believe that I'm the one who will do the best job of governing California.
Thank you. 1 second. Sorry, little technical issue here. Just letting Candidate McGowan know she is in the stream. Okay, let's go up to the next person, who will be David Hilberg. David Hilberg, in 1 minute, why are you the top candidate that 40 million people should be thinking about as they make the decision leading up to the mid of September next month? Candidate Hilberg.
Well, I could only say one thing. The people have lost hope. They've been living in this quagmire of politics for the past 45 years. It just gradually got worse and worse and multiplied to the point where you no longer have a functional government. We have a theocracy that believe in one thing and they impose their views upon those below them. I would like to bring law and order back to government. I would like to bring back the Constitution, which they've been ignoring for all these many years. If I had my wish, a lot of politicians will be going to jail, a lot of them resigning, and a lot of them repairing the damages that they've actually done over the years. For the past 15 years, our entire state governance has given California citizens a scorched earth policies, and they have to stop. We've actually wasted the human resources that California had. A lot of them left, a lot of them just gave up hope, and they just sit back. We've lost so many businesses because of this constructed pandemic, which was actually a biological weapon from China.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Candidate McGowan, you are unmuted. Candidate McGowan, you're running as a cannabis advocate. You've done lobbying in Sacramento. You've described the corruption that you saw on the inside of the building that most people never get to see. Why are you the best candidate to run for governor in 1 minute? Candidate McGowan.
I'm the best. I'm not here to represent corporate interests, and I'm the only one on this ticket out of 46 people that has 18 years experience on Wall Street and 7 years experience in lobbying. And when my firm wished to promote me from my local lobbying position in Sacramento to a state level position, I declined. And I actually said, you guys are dirtier than what I just came from. And I'm the only one on the ticket that isn't pandering to either side. And the only one that is reaching out to every party and saying, I want to represent the people. I care about your issues. I don't care if you wear a D hat. I don't care if you wear an R hat. I don't care if you wear an I hat. I am here to help every Californian get through what they are struggling with.
Thank you. We're now going to get to the questions. These are repeats of the questions asked at the Nixon Library. We're doing this because that was a televised event. Many Californians saw it. The media covered the responses from what were declared the top candidates, although we disagree with the determination. And so we'd like to give you the opportunity to answer the same questions so that the voters can see how you compare to the other candidates in the most televised debate. Now, these were from a conservative debate. Some of you will like these questions. Some of you are progressives and will not like these questions. You can argue against the question. You can say that's the wrong attitude. We should go in the total opposite direction. Please point out why your answers are better than the other candidates. And please don't be afraid to direct your responses at the other candidates based upon things you hear from them say, as long as we're being professional and politically polite. Here is the first question, and we're going to go in order of the introductory statements. What would you do as governor in 8 months to get more people vaccinated, or do you believe in personal choice? The first candidate to answer with 1 minute to respond will be candidate Kilpatrick. Candidate Kilpatrick, as governor, what would you do to make sure that more people are vaccinated, or do you take a separate stance and say it's a matter of personal choice? Your response, sir.
I've already said publicly that I believe in individual choice. I support people in either position. If you want to get the vaccine, you should be. If you don't want to get the vaccine for a variety of reasons, which are also based on science or your particular body, you should not be forced to. And I believe it's unconstitutional to force people to take anything into their own bodies without having their consent. So I think I'm pretty clear on that. I believe that we can protect our vulnerable populations with responsibility and effect. I think that we don't have to resort to a complete loss of all of our civil rights in order to do that. And I think people should be able, I believe in individual choice.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Hannick, what is your response to the question?
I think individual choice is important if it's in fact a choice for the good. I think my position is pretty distinctive on the vaccine. I'm not going to have the vaccine because, in fact, the current vaccines are based on tissue from aborted babies. I don't expect that everyone will take that seriously. I take it immensely seriously, especially because contemporary experimentation is using more and more and more fetal tissue for its so-called advances. On the other hand, if somebody doesn't want the vaccine because they don't feel like it, I don't think that's a good reason at all. I think one ought to have a very good reason, substantive reason, for refusing the vaccine. Other things being equal, I would have taken it as soon as I can, but they're not equal because of the abortion distortion, which is rigorously avoided by the mainstream media.
Thank you. Candidate Zaki, do you believe in personal choice, or should the governor take strong stances to make sure that more people are vaccinated? In 1 minute, sir, your response?
I firmly believe in personal choice, and the government has no place in mandating any of these so-called vaccines. The fact that not only is these vaccines not FDA approved, they're only approved or authorized for emergency use only, but the manufacturers of these so-called vaccines have zero liability. So they've also changed the language, what the definition of a vaccine is. These are mRNA. These are not actual vaccines that contain any virus in them. I would be very, very against mandating it. I would not ever. It's against free will. It's against freedom of choice. And as an American, that would be an infringement on your rights. So I am firmly against that. I would not mandate vaccines, masks, or lockdowns. This pandemic has blown way out of proportion as a complete pandemic.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Hilberg, what would your response be to the same question?
Well, it's a personal choice. It's just for the individual and the parents of the children that will or will not receive the vaccine. There's a herd immunity, which is naturally acquired as you're in the environment. I've been exposed to COVID for over a year. My parents, my mom, she took the shot. My other brothers and their wives, they caught COVID and they've recovered. My friends recovered. I had coworkers that caught it and they've recovered. So to me, the shot is, historically to me, is not necessary.
Okay.
So it's basically up to the individuals if they wish to have a shot or not.
Candidate McGowan, if you were governor in the short term of 8 months, some people are concerned about the Delta variant. Some people are concerned about going back into shutdowns. What would you do to either increase the amount of the vaccine being used, or do you believe in personal choice? You have to unmute yourself on your end.
Thank you, Marcus. I had no idea I'd be attending a debate today with a bunch of anti-vaxxers, but this is fun. To suggest that the vaccine was created in aborted fetuses. I mean, where are you guys getting your news? You're all following QAnon. I roll out the vaccine for community or they are dying at a higher rate, just like they're incarcerated at a higher rate due to our, insufficient laws and biased law system. I would make sure that everyone that wanted access to a vaccine could get one with mobile services. And yes, it should be a personal choice. However, whoever decides not to take it should be able to decide that, and everyone that works with it should have the option to continue working or not continue working that is vaccinated. I have more friends that are sick right now than I ever have since things started. And so to suggest that oh, it's just the flu. I mean, wow. Like, try looking at some science, Zaki, please.
Can I say something?
Sure. We'll do a 1 minute allowance for response to candidate McGowan in order. So an additional minute goes to Patrick Kilpatrick, and then we'll repeat the order. Everybody will get a chance to respond to candidate McGowan. Patrick Kilpatrick, in your response in 1 minute, sir.
Well, first I would say Ms. McGowan diminishes her candidacy by opening with a statement that she's the only one who's reaching out to different populations. So starting with an outright lie and lack of facts really does your own candidacy disservice. Second of all, there's a lot of scientific data contrary on both sides of this situation. There's a lot of people who've gotten sick who already had the vaccine. There's a lot of conflicting things around from every quarter, and people need to make their own decisions for it. You either believe in individual responsibility and the American ideal, or you don't. So that's what I have to say about that.
Candidate Hannick, 1 minute response, sir.
Yes, let me try this again. In general, I support the vaccine, just as in general I support vaccines across a wide range of diseases. The difficulty is the end does not justify the means. We have vaccines here that are based on using body parts of aborted babies. This is unacceptable. It need not be that way. Our scientists need not have constructed the vaccines in that way, and yet they did. They need to be called out on this.
Okay. Candidate Zaki, 1 minute response.
Ms. McGowan, I would question where you're getting your information from. If you look at a definition of vaccines from before 2019, you'll notice that there is a distinct difference between the current definition. Furthermore, would you prefer everyone walk around with a little bit of star, just like they did in Nazi Germany, saying, I have proof of identification, you don't hear and you can't go there because you do not have that? I don't believe that is at all acceptable in any facet of life.
Okay, candidate Hilberg, your response, and then we'll go to candidate McGowan, and we'll go to the next question. Candidate Hilberg, your response.
My personal experience, so far, the vaccine has killed 3 people that my friend knows. I've had my mother lose about 5 or 6 of her friends due to the isolation of being locked up in their houses. They just lost the will to live. The survival rate that I've had personally with my co-workers, my friends, family, and such with COVID itself is higher than the human intrusion of locking people down or shooting them with the vaccine. So I look at it as, okay, this thing came out no matter where. It's here. It's going to be here forever. It's going to change. It's going to mutate. So you just have to have herd immunity, which is get out, do your things, be healthy, get your vitamin D in you, spruce up on your vitamins. If you want tonic water to drink, because if you can't get hydroxychloroquine as a prophylactic, you have to use all sources available to defeat the virus. And biological warfare is 1% bug, 99% bug, and that's it.
Thank you. Candidate McGowan, your response in 1 minute.
This is the most ridiculous debate I've ever participated in. I'm so grateful.
I'm
to
sure
be
you're speechless.
aborted body parts, and a friend of a friend of a friend knows someone that knows people that died of
That's
the vaccine.
That's three friends. That personally was a friend of my friend who doesn't lie.
Mute him, Marcus. I have the stage right now. This is my time. I didn't interrupt him. You want to talk about facts, and you're bringing up a friend of a friend, or someone that knows 3 people that died of a vaccine, and that's how you're
His
facing
3 friends died from the vaccine.
You're gonna run your governorship off of rumors? Wow.
It's not rumor.
Yeah, no. Thank God you're not getting elected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to the next question now. I appreciate it. Look, we are here to respectfully debate each other, and you all are doing a good job. So I appreciate that, directing your questions at each other and pointing out why you're the better candidate than the others. I know that's a little bit rough, but it's going to be even worse if any of you ever get to Sacramento. I've worked in Sacramento. You will have to be able to defend your ideas. So we're doing, and the voters are watching, how well you're going to actually be able to operate in an environment. Let's go to question 2 now that everybody's got their blood pressure up. This comes from the Nixon Library Republican debate. The questions are a little bit conservative. You don't have to agree. You can disagree. What would you do to stop Mexican drug cartels coming into California and bringing drugs with them? The first candidate up will be Patrick Kilpatrick with a 1-minute response. Candidate Kilpatrick? The stage.
Well, this flies to the face of how solutions are not being applied universally in all the challenges that we have. We should be able to secure the border, and if necessary, the National Guard deployed to make sure that. At the same time, we can bring our undocumented out of the shadows with a guest worker pass and a clear path to citizenship after 5 years if there are no felony convictions, and then move that into a situation where there's a fine for illegal entry of $10,000 over 10 years. It's payable in annual increments. Therefore, that whole program pays for itself. It also pays for childhood nutrition, child nutrition and English classes, should they be so desired. At the same time, you can secure the border. We can make California an example, even though this is a federal issue of immigration. We can solve both sides of these equations. So without having to resort to anything that isn't elevating and having empathy for everybody across the board. That's another word for beautifying the state. That's another word for solidarity, empathy and elevation for everybody. At the same time, we're bringing in eco-sensitive businesses to raise the prosperity level of the people who are already in the state. At the same time, we're putting solar power plants and desalination plants throughout the state to elevate our pure food and water. It's not an either-or situation. It's a situation where we can get the things done by using a synergy of solutions from many, many different directions.
Thank you. I'm going to raise it to 2 minutes per candidate. We're going to go next to Professor James Hannick. Professor Hannick, in 2 minutes.
I'm glad I'm leading the way to getting every candidate an extra minute to talk.
You are.
Thank you so much.
You've done that twice in a row. So.
By the way, I want to honor David's situation about saying, or Leo saying about beautifying the state. Doesn't it all come down to aesthetics and making beautiful choices about our lives? Whether it's electric lawnmowers.
Sorry? You have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for keeping track of time, but you can't keep track of facts about. Last night I was at a Ugandan event, and so, but you're the only person who's outreaching to the community.
Thank you. Thank
you.
We will
I apologize for my long-windedness.
Thank you, Candidate Kilpatrick. Let's go to Candidate Hannick. Candidate Hannick, 2 minutes. How would you handle this question, Professor James Hannick?
I'm in favor of a generous immigration policy. I think building walls is a boondoggle of the first order. I think the Trump policy was bonkers. At the same time, I'm deeply opposed to the lax attitude, I think, all things considered, a lax attitude towards drug importation into the United States. I miss my co-candidate, Nicholas Allstar. He and I have chatted about, and this is a proposition that I would like to present for public debate, chatted about dealing with meth producers and major meth distributors by having tattoos placed on their forehead that say MN, meth murders. I don't think people take that seriously enough. The homelessness problem, which is a terrible tragedy, is not going to be resolved until we take the drug dealers seriously. I think of myself as fundamentally a nonviolent person, but I think we are far too lax with the drug dealers, and I think we can find them. Good grief, in a time of advanced capitalism, we have no trouble finding funds. We have no trouble finding venture capitalists. I think we can succeed very well in finding the people who are engaged in widespread slaughter by the distribution and manufacturing of drugs.
Thank you. Let's go next to candidate Zaki. It appeared that you already had a difference of opinion with some of the other candidates. How do you feel differently? And why do you have the right answers when everybody else doesn't? Candidate Zaki, in 2 minutes.
Well, I firmly disagree with Professor Hannick. We do absolutely need strong border walls, and I do not disagree with Trump's immigration policy at all. Having secure borders is the first line of defense for keeping legal drugs out of our communities and harming our youth and anybody else that is a member of our community. We need to allow our police and drug enforcement agencies to go after the criminals in a very aggressive manner. It doesn't take much effort and much funding in the right places to go and tackle these sort of evil criminals. It can be done. We have the tools. We have a lot of wonderfully trained police officers that know exactly how to go about handling this situation. There's plenty of intelligence that we've gathered. We know who these drug lords are. We know how their rackets work. So we should be allowed to go and take them out and enforce the full power of the law to handle these criminals. We need to incarcerate and deport any illegal drug dealers. We need to take a firm stance on it because it is crippling our society. Look at you bring up the homeless. That is the drug use that they're using is most likely coming from outside of this country or is being produced inside of our state by the drug cartel. They have no scruples, and we must go after them aggressively because they are destroying the state, the country, children, people.
Thank you. Next up will be candidate Hilberg. Candidate Hilberg, what would you do to stop drug cartels and drugs coming into California? In 2 minutes, sir.
Well, the drug problem is a creation of the policies that have open borders in sanctuary cities where our law enforcement and our federal agencies are unable or prevented from doing their jobs. I would actually tell everyone in our legislature, no more policies that violate law. The reason why they're coming across the border because they were so-called invited by the federal government and their policies. Trump had a good policy of closing off the border. Why didn't we keep it? You may not like Trump, but his results has had a positive effect on the country. So why are we playing politics between left, right, independent, or green people going to policies that violate law and actually become a detriment to the country? A lot of this stuff is a resultance of poor government management. So when we get rid of Newsom, we have to remember and get rid of a lot of those in the legislature who created sanctuary cities, those mayors that created sanctuary cities. Get rid of them. Get the people, support the citizens because that's what we need. And police and fire, and all those people need support. They don't need to be defunded, as a lot of people keep saying. There's one candidate that I spoke to the other day who flip-flops on defunding and funding the police. He has no idea what he's doing. So we have to support our law enforcement. We have to support good laws, get rid of policies that violate law, and get rid of the politicians that violate their oath of office.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up will be Candidate McGowan. Candidate McGowan, in 2 minutes, how would you address this question?
So in order to solve the problem with drugs and cartels coming to California, we must get to the root cause. Everyone that has spoken thus far is trying to attack the problem and not what's causing it, okay? We don't have an illicit market for alcohol. We have a robust illicit market for cannabis because it's been overtaxed and overregulated, creating an unfair playing advantage. And so we have to be able to lower our taxes and regulations in order to create a price point where the legal cannabis industry can compete with the illicit market. The illicit market doesn't have to pay taxes and fees and go through the rigorous process of getting through CEQA. And so until that playing field is on an even playing field, then we're going to continue to see drugs flooding our border. I would also like to see us, legalize psychedelics. Let's take some of those markets away from the cartels. If you hit them in the pocketbooks, you solve the problem.
Well, I think she's finally said something I agree with.
And who gave you the stage again?
I took it upon myself. I'm a man of action.
This is a debate.
By the way, I don't think being a lobbyist for 20 years and being a member of the corrupt system that's making the infrastructure that you're complaining about is actually evidence of any kind of qualification to hold public office.
I was not a lobbyist for 18 years. I was a stockbroker for 18 years.
Well, that's good. And by the way, all labor is noble.
Yeah. Stop interrupting.
I'm not interrupting. I'm merely commenting.
He's punctuating.
Thank you very much. Semantics is everything. Listen, God love you. God love you. I just agreed with something that you said.
Oh, I'm so grateful for that. Can we move on?
Yeah, of course, sure. I'd be happy to. But if you say something that I agree with, I want to lionize you for that. Okay? There you go. Or lioness you.
Can I provide some context?
Well, I'm not, you don't have to ask my permission.
Well, I have to ask Marcus's permission.
You're on mute, Marcus.
I'm sorry, Professor Hennick, what do you mean by context?
Some philosophical framework for this discussion. Good stuff. Good stuff. Seriously.
Well, candidates are asked to direct commentary to each other and to show that they're have different opinions. But the point of the debate, the point of the debate is the questions. So it was additional ancillary commentary, and we're going to go back to the questions. What would you do to get the legislature to deal with homelessness? Homelessness has been a massive issue for years. Governor Newsom came in saying he was going to fix the problem. And yet, according to the Public Policy Institute of California, he's polling the worst possible support rate amongst California voters for how he dealt with homelessness. Perhaps California voters like how he dealt with coronavirus, but they are completely dissatisfied with the way that he dealt with homelessness. How would you handle the homelessness issue so that we could get results right away in the 8 months that you would be governor? A limited amount of time. We're going to go for 1 minute responses. First up will be candidate Kilpatrick.
Well, first of all, I'd come from this assumption, this ends. This is going to end. And so if you identify the different populations of the homeless, you have a veteran component going across. You have those who are able-bodied people, good-meaning people who fell onto hard times. You have people who are trying to live on the dole, and they think that as some sort of instrument of freedom. You have the drug addicted, you have sex trafficking, you have the mentally challenged. Well, if you look at the state under Gavin Newsom and decades of governance, there really isn't any system for any of these people. I would say we have to get out of the box and have it happen. If we have to build a city facility that is supervised out in the desert where we have lots of land so that these people can be impacted in the particular population they are. And if they don't want to do it, well, there's law enforcement that takes place. And if you need to, you get the National Guard to supervise it. It ends. It ends. The truth is, we need to build facilities for these people and get them into it. And if they don't want to accept that adjudicated process, then they go to jail.
Thank you, candidate. Thank you. Next up, we're going to go to Professor James Hannock. James Hannock, in 1 minute, how would you fix homelessness in a way that has not been accomplished by both the California government or its people?
In 8 months, no one will fix homelessness. However, I will try to speak to the truth of the matter. Homelessness is a multifaceted phenomenon. Part one comes from economic disparity. That's exactly what you get in advanced capitalism, and that's exactly what we have in front of us. Another factor is mental health. In the kind of society we live in, people are progressively isolated more and more and more. And when that happens, the street is oftentimes their only alternative. And a third thing is the drug addiction problem, which I've discussed before. There's nothing free about using drugs. Using hard drugs is self-destructive. And allowing for the use of self-destruction is not an exercise in freedom. It's an exercise in moral ignorance.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we're going to go to candidate Zaki. Candidate Zaki, how would you fix homelessness in a way that has eluded Democratic-controlled legislature in Sacramento and the current Governor Newsom? Candidate Zaki.
Well, I have a plan for essentially teaching a man to fish rather than giving a man a fish, which has been proven to not work time and again when you talk about putting the homeless in hotels and providing these temporary shelters. It's not helping them. You're not helping uplift them out of poverty. You're just helping people a place to continue their negative lifestyle. I would like to, and I agree with Mr. Kilpatrick, that we should provide facilities for the homeless. And
I'm having a challenge hearing you. Thank you. Maybe if you were closer to the microphone.
Anyways. So,
there you go.
Sorry.
We'll start you over. Start over. Solid minute, candidate Zaki, starting now.
Sorry. So I do have a plan for teaching a man to fish rather than giving a man a fish. And
that's too high.
Right.
Candidate Kilpatrick, I'd ask you to let them respond, please, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Candidate Zaki.
Oh, yes. Teaching a man to fish rather than giving a man a fish. We've seen that putting homeless in hotels and building temporary housing does not work. You're just giving them a place to continue a negative lifestyle. I do agree with Mr. Kilpatrick that we do need to provide facilities for the homeless. And part of that program would include figuring out, well, first off, I would disagree with him in the sense that it is optional because it is not a free society and people have the right to make choices. But I do believe that vagrancy laws do need to be enforced. So what I would like to do is I would like to provide a place where we can take them and figure out who they are. Is anybody looking for them? Then determine, do they have a mental illness? Do they have a drug addiction? Be able to provide treatment for them in those facilities. And also while they're there, give them the ability to learn a work skill. Having been in agriculture and worked with my hands, I get a great sense of accomplishment when I create things with my hands, as I'm sure many of you do as well. And I would like to be able to give people compensation for when they're working. So if they were to learn farm labor, for example, and raise crops, the state could then turn around and sell those crops as a profit to help offset the costs that it would take to take care of them. And as they are earning money, And once they were in the position where they felt that they were ready to go out back in the world, I mean, they could leave anytime they want, but it would give them a skill so they could go join some sort of labor, and then they would also have money to their name where they could have the creations of a foundation. They could, afford housing on their own. They could take care of themselves on their own and have that sense of accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you. 1 second, candidate Kilpatrick. We'll come back around for you. 1 second. We're going to finish the round with candidate Hilberg. Candidate Hilberg, in 1 minute, how would you do something different about homelessness to fix it?
Well, they had the cure a long time ago at the Peter Pitch's Honor Rancho, where people were picked up on Friday, the drug addicts, the homeless, the vagabonds, the hobos, and they were actually taken to a ranch where they worked the dairy, worked the farm. They were put in the hospital if need be. They were given medical care. They were given pay. And the interlopers came in and sued the sheriff's department and the government for picking up these people and incarcerating, what they called incarcerating them for their own good and for their own benefit. So that program went away, and that took a lot of funding away from the sheriff's department. So after they got rid of that program, their sheriff's budget bloated because they had to outsource the milk, the cereals, the stuff that they sold on the farm to the prisons, and the meats. Because in the old days, people took care of this stuff, but people began to tolerate, well, we want more freedom. Well, when you have absolute freedom and a lifestyle that affords you no responsibilities, it grows. I think Pete Wilson said it best way back when, was we're going to have the greatest welfare state in the nation. Well, that draws all the derelicts out from other states. They come here because of the weather, because they're free on the dole. So we have to go back and remove the culture and return the stigma of, if you're not working and if you're not homeless, and if, we have the safety nets. We have to use the safety nets for those that cannot prepare or provide for themselves, but we have to have actions for those that are not willing to take care of themselves because of attitude, of drug addiction, of just saying, I want it my way or nothing. And that's what the homeless problem is people lost hope. They have lost nothing. They have nothing to lose, basically. So they just sit on the street. So we have to, get the ones that can't, get
Thank
them.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, candidate Hilberg. Let's go to candidate McGowan. You have 2 streams open. Do you want me to use the second stream?
I'm having some technical difficulties, so I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you perfectly.
First of all, we need to approach homelessness. Oh, good. We need to approach homelessness from a holistic aspect. And drug addiction should not be something that we're condemning people like it's a moral shortcoming. Drug addiction is often a way to escape trauma, and people don't choose to be homeless because it's easier to live on the streets. It's actually a lot harder. And so we need to get to the root cause of what's causing people to be homeless. We must show empathy for those people. We must first heal the trauma and then rehabilitate them and offer job training and affordable housing. I know when I went to high school, I was able to take wood shop and metal shop and 4-H and learn skills if I did not want to go to college. That skills that would have applied, to any job that I could have gone after. And for some reason, those types of programs were cut. And I think if we were offering more of those types of things to build self-esteem at an early age, that we would see people using drugs less and able to address and heal from whatever childhood wounds they have. And we can't criminalize homelessness. You can't stick a gun in their face and expect them to go get a job. And you can't throw them in a jail cell and expect them to heal their trauma. And so if we don't take a complete approach with all of these types of phases, we're never going to solve this.
Thank you, candidate. We're going to go to Patrick Kilpatrick. He's going to have 1 minute for additional response. All other candidates will get an additional minute of response. Candidate Kilpatrick.
Well, I want to applaud the other candidates. They're getting some things that are really insightful. David and Leo, a component of my plan for it, I would like to say, is the creation of a statewide workforce in which people who are able-bodied and who have fallen on hard times would receive employment and housing and pay as they are beautifying the state throughout the state. Those who wish to live on the dole will have the opportunity to be part of that workforce as well. It is holistic, as Ms. McGowan is saying. You're giving people an opportunity to have their situations addressed. If they don't choose to take it because of their quote unquote disease, and I think part of addiction involves willpower and the ability to roll up your sleeves and get well, then if they don't do that, there are going to be other options, and law enforcement will take a participation in that. But only after that holistic approach is applied across the board to address their issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken Kilpatrick. Let's go to the next person will be Professor Hannick. 1 minute additional response on what you heard the other candidates say. Professor Hannick for 1 minute.
This is going to be a real 1 minute. I can't think of anything that I wouldn't want to have a holistic approach to.
Nor can I.
I'm in favor of holistic approaches to everything. That said, what I would really recommend is that all of us and all the politicians get to know somebody who's homeless. Go out regularly and speak with somebody. The most wonderful things that Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Calcutta did is personally meet people who are homeless. And when she did so, she certainly didn't say, stay out of politics. But neither did she say, what you need to do is get politically involved. They had needs that came first. And those of us who are engaged in politics must never lose our personal contact with the people that we are supposedly going to help.
Thank you. Thank you, candidate. We're going to go to candidate Zaki. Candidate Zaki, an additional minute. How do you feel about the responses you've heard so far? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with?
Well, I certainly disagree with using excessive law enforcement to force people into these work situations. It is still freedom of choice. However, we do need to enforce vagrancy laws, and the vagrancy laws haven't been able to be enforced because of a ruling that took place in a case called Martin versus Boise. I would recommend everybody take interest in researching that. It essentially prevents 9 most western states and the territory of Guam from enforcing vagrancy. With that being said, I do understand where Professor Hannick is coming from. Where you could, speak with the homeless and try to get an understanding. And to that, I would say I do know folks who have been homeless. I have friends who have fallen on hard times through a multitude of reasons, and not all of it is related to drug addiction. It's 100% true. But that's why we need to be able to provide a place where we can help uplift folks and give them the ability to learn a skill, or just be able to earn a living wage in a constructive manner that gets them away from anything that could negatively impact.
Thank you, candidate Zaki. We're going to go to candidate Hilberg. Candidate Hilberg, an additional minute response. Anything you liked, did not like, or agreed with. Candidate Hilberg.
Well, the way I see it, there's not just one approach to the homeless problem. It's many. And it's going to be up to the individual that you contact. It's the person, do they want to be back to work? Do they want to change their lifestyle? Do they want to change their habits? Do they want to drop their drugs? So I see that, one, the old ways worked. Even though it was forceful, it worked. It worked all the way up to time till they got sued out of existence. And to bring it back, you have to modify it to the point where that the law enforcement is allowed to do their jobs. The NGOs that have been working with homeless be part of the funding process, where the NGOs, which is like the Midnight Mission, Rescue Mission in LA and such, or all around the world, all around the state, would have to be partners in this solution, because it's going to take the population, it's going to take the homeless, it's going to take government all working together to get rid of this problem. It's not just going to be one size fits all and, oh yeah, let's just leave it to government, or let's just leave it to the police, or leave it to the citizens.
Thank you. Thank you, candidate. We're finally going to go to candidate McGowan, Jackie McGowan. Ideas that you liked, ideas you didn't approve of. What do you think of what you've heard, and what do you like or don't? Candidate McGowan.
Thank you, Marcus. I would love to say what I agree or disagree with. However, there isn't a single candidate here that came up with any solutions. So it's kind of hard to say, well, I'm happy that James Hannock agrees that we need holistic approaches to things, but he didn't come up with one. Hilbert just wants to, criminalize people and throw them in jail for being homeless. Leo, and Leo, I can't hear anything that you're saying because you have a really bad mic. And I don't even remember what Kilpatrick said, so.
Okay. Patrick Kilpatrick?
Misinformation and lies is really, really zealous. I think it's really extraordinary. I think everybody here came up with some holistic solutions, and you don't seem to hear them. And speaking as a person who doesn't seem to be able to get her own technology together, I don't really know where you're coming from, candidate McGowan. You seem very, very aggressive when exactly the other people here are participating in democracy with an open heart. So I suggest that you actually listen as much as you spout off.
You got it.
McGowan, response?
Can't wait to grow up and be just like you.
Okay, thank you
I didn't
both.
ask you to do that. I hope you come up to become the complete blossoming of your character. And that's
Okay.
going to be occurring.
Has anybody ever lived in a hangar?
Thank you both. I appreciate that. So I'm going to ask you all a question. We have about 7 minutes. We're going to start a women's only candidate debate at 2:30. I need to go in about 7 minutes for that. Would you like one more question or a closing statement? So this is an option for, let me see. Who wants one more question rather than a closing statement in our remaining time? Raise a hands. Who wants a closing statement rather than a last question? Raise of hands.
I'll take it either way.
Okay, well, now we have a tie. I'm sorry, candidate Kilpatrick, you're the tiebreaker. I need you to pick because we have two people who are saying one more question and two people saying closing statement. So once again, you're going to provide the leadership on this debate. Do we have a closing statement?
Since I adore you, I'd like you to present the question.
Okay, there it is. That was fair. I asked the candidates one more question. We're going to keep the responses tight to about a minute because we're going to do this question and we're going to end the debate. Thank you all. We will have more debates. I appreciate it. Here is the question. How do you keep businesses fleeing California? And how do you make California more open to businesses? We are hemorrhaging businesses, and we have one of the worst business climates in all of America. What would you do as governor to make it better? We're going to go with candidate Kilpatrick in 1 minute. Please, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate all of you. We're already doing that with the film business and other businesses. The bottom line is, in order to, the solution for these things is holistic. The reason the film business left the state is because of a combination of highly specialized unions, over-regulation, lack of incentive program that made it competitive with other states, the high price of housing. So my platform addresses all those issues with design-worthy, affordable housing, with an incentive program for the film business to bring it back. We have to all roll up our sleeves and work together. The private sector, government, the unions will have to work together as they do in Vancouver and New Mexico. The film business is just a microcosm of other businesses. We all have to work together in order to make California more prosperous, lower taxes, more money into the hands of Californians, and we need to roll up our sleeves. We are one, we are empathetic, and we should be devoted to the state and to everyone who's in the state. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Candidate Hannock, what would you do to rescue the business climate of California in 1 minute?
I would speak as eloquently and as forcefully as I can in favor of worker-owned business cooperatives. And then I would encourage a certain range of businesses to leave as soon as possible. Businesses that don't pay a living wage should leave. Businesses that aren't environmentally responsible should leave. Businesses that produce garbage should leave. What counts as garbage? Well, here's a starter: Halloween costumes for pets. Here's another starter: meretricious advertising. There are more lies told by private businesses than there are by the political class. And what I would like to do is to make it very clear that I'm not going to pander to business. Stay if you're doing something worthwhile. Leave if you're not.
Thank you. We're going to go next to Leo Zaki. Leo Zaki is somebody who's worked in business. How do you feel about the answers you've seen in 1 minute? What's the solution?
Oh, well, I'm quite disappointed in hearing Professor Hannick's response. It sounds like he's very textbook in an academia with his response. I strongly disagree with that, sir. There's a lot of reasons we need to have business, and your definition of garbage is ridiculous. The problem here is we have overregulation. We have too many people making laws about businesses. They have no idea how they operate. It's crippling and it's very destructive. It happened to my family's business, and it makes it impossible to have a competitive place for people to produce here in California. My family's business was around for 90 years. We were at one point the largest employer that was a privately owned entity, and we went under because California became an uncompetitive place. It's because our minimum wage hikes caused our labor to price us out of competition, along with environmental restrictions, which increased the cost of water, and then all sorts of restrictive building restrictions that inhibited our ability to grow in the manner that was necessary for us in a timely fashion. So we were priced out of business in our own backyard. We need to deregulate business. We need to lower business taxes. We need to lower taxes all the way around, because that will help keep more money in the pockets of the businesses, which will allow them to grow, which will increase the ability to hire on more employees, thus lowering employment and decreasing the wealth disparity. If you have businesses, you can keep people employed. And if people are employed, they're getting paid and they can live and keep spending money in the state and having better qualities of life.
Thank you, candidate. I deeply appreciate that. Let's go to candidate Hilberg in 1 minute. What would you do to solve this issue?
Well, it's up to the Labor Department, but I would actually give an example of what I saw about a week ago. A business was being inspected for water runoff, which we're in a drought, and they've been inspected quarterly. And the inspection fee was $3,500, and to register for that fee was another $1,500. So those realistically, they come out to inspect where there's no water, where there's no chemicals, where there's no oils or petroleum products or hazardous materials, and they come in and basically loot, the money from the business owners or extort from them what they should have never paid in the first place. If you get an inspection, the inspector's being paid anyway by the state. Have them come out, do the paperwork, take a look, and then a minimal fee. The cost of doing business in California is enormous. The permit process, it's repetitive and really bad on business. My brother, he does telecommunication work, and he had to teach the inspector how to inspect the stuff that he installed in the building because the inspector didn't know what he was doing.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Last response, not least, candidate McGowan. You worked in business. What would you do to keep companies from leaving and attract more companies to California? In 1 minute, candidate McGowan.
I have to tell you that the saddest part of COVID is driving around and seeing businesses that I, grew up with, not in business any longer. And, giving loans out when you're increasing the cost to produce revenue and you're not lowering the barriers to entry in any other way. When you're raising barriers to entry through extra COVID regulations, we have to lower the regulations in another way. It has to be a holistic approach. Businesses survive on 1% to 3% margins, usually in small businesses. And small businesses are the economic engine of this great state. And so we have to do more to help them stay here. And then we have to work on attracting them. And that's through looking at emerging markets, such as the psychedelic space, such as cryptocurrency, and whatever else is coming down the road, we need to grab those markets and keep them in California.
Don't forget the nicotine market too.
Thank you, all candidates. I appreciate it. We're going to end our debate.
Oh, that was weed. I smoke weed.
Well, there you go. Well, as an athlete, I think that anything like that beyond a certain level, unless it's for pain addressing, you're diminishing yourself. So I think I look forward to facing the real candidate.
Tell that to Shakari. Tell that to Shakari.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's been
if
a
it's
lot.
Going into your lungs, it's probably diminishing your ability to absorb.
I mean,
oxygen.
Shakari just was accused of it being a performance-enhancing drug. No.
Thank you.
Right? Can't have it a stoner.
You're absolutely right. You have the individual right to do
Kilpatrick.
it.
Can't have it both.
I do have it.
Okay. I hate to do that. I had to mute people. Sorry. I'm the moderator. You are all awesome Californians. I can tell that each one of you has your heart in the race. You're not bought and paid for. You're actually here to make change. And I am proud to be part of an effort to make sure that people from many political backgrounds and philosophies are here. You can see the candidates challenging each other. Why are they doing that? Because they actually care. Think about it that way. We have to go. We have a debate at 2:30 for all women candidates. If you like this debate, email us. We'll be setting up another one, and we hope to see all of you very soon. Thank you.